Good evening, class. On Saturday, November 5th, 2022, I had the pleasure and an awesome opportunity to meet MeKisha McCraw for the first time. This opportunity came by, I'm a barber by trade, and I was cutting her cousin's hair, and I was letting him know about the situation where I needed a social worker, and I didn't want to have to drive to Natchitoches, Louisiana, just to speak with a social worker. And so that's how this blessing came about. But anyway, I had Mrs. MeKisha McCraw and her husband Daryl McCraw over to my home, and we sat down and did the interview. The interview was interesting because this was my first time meeting Mrs. McCraw, but we already had a rapport and we was engaged, and because of life has crossed our paths in different times and different situations, but enough to give us a bond. The conversation was great. It was funny. It was filled with a lot of laughter and good information about social work. So I'm your host, Philip Davis, and like I said, my interviewee was Mrs. MeKisha McCraw, and the first question was, why did you choose social work? MeKisha chose the field of social work because her mother worked in child welfare, and she knew that she wanted to make a difference in the lives of the oppressed and vulnerable people by enhancing their well-being and helping them meet their basic needs. She knew the consequences of poverty, so she knew that to make a difference in the lives of a child, she could provide them the tools needed to become successful adults. Question 2, where did you get your degree and what was your academic experience like? She received her bachelor's of social work in 1999 and a master's of social work in 2000 from Grambling State University. Her academic experience was filled with lots of studying and tutoring in math. She enjoyed meeting new people and spending time with friends. She traveled to lots of places and had new experiences and learned many new things. What jobs have you held as a social worker? What was your least and most favorite? She began her social work career as a substance abuse counselor at Orleans Parish Prison. After 1 year, she decided to move back to Shreveport, Louisiana, and took a job at the DCFS as a child protection investigator. She said being a child protection investigator was very emotional and stressful job. This was her least likely job that she enjoyed. She said because she had to see physical and mental abuse, neglect, and I just couldn't think of how horrific it was, being a woman and having children to go into these situations. So she said that was her least favorite job. She also began working at the community mental health clinic in Shreveport, behavioral health clinic, as a child adolescent clinician. She said this has been her most rewarding job. Seeing the clients using the tools taught in therapy and being successful in life brings her great joy. Again, she said her least favorite job was working at DCFS. She said being a mental health clinician has been her most favorite job, period. What does she currently do as a social worker? She is a clinic manager of a community behavioral health clinic where she provides mental health and substance abuse treatment to children, adolescents, and adults. In her practice, she provides individuals as well as some group therapy to children and adolescents with emotional and behavioral disorders. She thoroughly enjoys practicing in the setting because it is a multidisciplinary team, which makes it easier to coordinate services to meet the needs of the individuals with complex care needs. She is a licensed master social worker. She is certified in TF, CBT, Target, PCIT, and EMDR. The only one I know is CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, but she has a lot of initials, so I'm sure she is very, very smart and good at her job. Question 5, what is social work to you? She says social work to her is a professional trained professionals who are devoted to helping vulnerable people and communities work through life challenges that they face in everyday life. Question 6, what makes a difference between a skilled and unskilled social worker? The difference between skilled and unskilled social workers are training and experience. Social workers continue to grow faster than average occupations, and you should always look for training to enhance your clinical skills. You can prepare by staying abreast of professional issues, reading your professional journals, and going to webinars and training. Some skills that skilled social workers should possess are empathy, active listening, critical thinking, patience, and being culturally competent. Unskilled social workers tend to lack those skills and have boundary issues. Question 7. Do you believe that there are bad and good social workers? Her answer was yes. There are good and bad social workers. There are social workers who struggle with boundaries and become over-friendly to clients, which can sometimes lead to unethical situations. There are some social workers who lack experience and trainings and practice out of their scope. Good social workers are organized, meet their clients where they are, caring, emphatic, and are able to tackle problems head on. Great social workers are always looking for trainings to enhance their clinical skills. And just to bring up quickly, Dana Bonheimer, in being a clinical clinician, spoke about everyone having narcissistic needs. I do know about narcissism. I was that way for whatever reason, because life, I was that way. So I do know how selfish that mentality is. And what she was saying, you can't allow that mentality, even though you do have it, you can't allow it to overtake the treatment of the individual that you have to treat. So I thought that was interesting. Question 8. If you were trying to convince me to become a social worker or a student in general, what would you want them to know? She said, social work is a very rewarding profession. She seeks to improve the lives of people and their community. Social workers advocate for their clients and provide guidance and support. If you want to make a difference in the world, she said, become a social worker. And I agree. How do you practice self-care? She said she practiced self-care by spending time with her family, going to sporting events, traveling, crafting, and of course her relationship with God. The question I asked was, what is your highest and lowest accomplishment as a social worker? She answered the question, my highest accomplishment thus far as a social worker is getting my LMSW and certifications in evidence-based practices. Her lowest accomplishment is not pursuing my license as a substance abuse counselor. When I receive my LCSW license, that would be my highest accomplishment. I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening to some of my words that I stumbled over. But the interview was great. And I hope after reading her responses that if you don't want to be a social worker like me, after you hear my video, that you would decide to be a social worker and want to be a superhero and change the world with me. Thank you.